Hello, this is Tip Top Gaming here today with another MTG Throne of Eldraine spoiler video. Now, I'm going to be covering spoilers from the weekend as well as all the new spoilers covered today. For those of you who don't know, I go in Wooburg order, so white, blue, black, red, green, artifacts, then multicolored. So yeah, just so you guys know. And then I go from common to mythic in the colors. So we're going to start with Arden Vale Paladin. It's a 4-cost 2/5 with adamant. It's also a knight. If at least 3 white mana was spent to cast the spell, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. I think this card is kind of terrible. It does fit into the knight tribal, so I guess that could... Anything that's a knight kind of can fit into the knight's deck. However, to be honest, this thing should probably be a 3/6 if it's going to cost 4. But I could see it maybe fitting in a deck, but really this is a bulk common. Next we have Bartered Cow, which is a 4-cost 3/3. When it's an ox. I thought it was a cow. When the cow dies or when you discard it, create a food token. I mean, this is okay. It's a 3/3 for 4. And it is a creature your opponent is incentivized not to block. However, food is primarily in black-green, so I don't think this is going to see any play, outside of maybe draft. Next, we have Silverfilm Squire, a 2-cost 2/1. But it has an adventure, which is on alert, and it says target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, untap it. That feels really overpriced, and a 2/1 for 2 isn't that great. Again, feels kind of just bulk common-y. Next, we have Lonesome Unicorn, which is a 5-cost 3/3 with Vigilance, and you can pay 3 and create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. I mean, in a white deck, I might see this being played, but again, it doesn't feel super powerful. We're going through a lot of white commons here. Would be good in draft, as you get 2 creatures out of it, and they both have Vigilance, so that's really good. But other than that, again, don't see much use for this. Next, we have Rally for the Throne. This is uncommon. It's a 3-cost instant. Create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. Do not underestimate that. The ability to make creature tokens at instant speed, or just be able to make creatures at instant speed, is amazing. And you can see that kind of with that Raise the Alarm card. And actually, that card costs 1 less, and it creates 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens instead of humans. But this one, if you pay at least 3 white mana, you gain 1 life creature you control, which can be really good in a flood deck, which is kind of what this would go in. So I think this card could see some play in like a Selesnya flood type of deck. Next, we have Archon of Absolution. It's a creature Archon. We saw another white Archon, which was a mythic that turned everything into 3/3s, unless it was an Archon. However, this would actually benefit from that. It has flying and protection from white, and creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 for each of those creatures. This is a very prison-esque card. I think this will totally see play. I don't know in what, but that is a very powerful ability, and I really hope, with the amount of copying and standard, this might end up fitting into like a blue deck, and you copy it and make it really expensive to attack. I hope that's not the case. I think this could be a mistake and could be a little risky. I wish they just wouldn't have printed this card. Next, we have ceralun, the Lion's Claw, which is a 5-cost 4/4 with first strike. It's a legendary creature, human knight. It's a 4 for first strike. Whenever it attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. I don't think that can be disregarded. This would obviously go in a flood deck, flood knight deck, and it has first strike, which is really good. I think this card could end up seeing some play in a knight's deck. It's okay. It's an uncommon. Next, we have Lidden, the Steadfast Queen. This is a 3-cost 3/3 with Vigilance. It's a human noble, and whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. I could totally see this going in a like white life gain a Johnny's Pride Mint kind of deck, where you, again, flood. So this is a lot of white flood today. And yeah, you gain a lot of things, and it's triple white. So it looks like they're going, they push this Knight's Flood kind of thing, this 3-color thing, but then they also print things like this, which is triple white, which is really hard to get off. Now, in another video, I'll be going over all the colors and what they do in this set. And they do say that, some sets of colors do knights. Like, there are obviously 3 sets of 2 colors that can do knights, and they talk about those there. So I think this card will definitely see play. Next, we have Forever Young. It's a 2-cost common. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library. Draw a card. So you can pretty much read this at minimum as return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Or you could choose 0 and this says pay to draw a card. It is sorcery speed. However, you could also... Oh, you killed a bunch of my creatures. I'm going to put them all on top of my library and get to recast them. I think if you could somehow figure out a way to loop this with, like, that one Spellkeeper weird where you sacrifice it to return a sorcery, you could keep doing this. So I think this could have some potential, but again, I don't know. Next, we have Cauldron's Gift, which is a 5-cost sorcery. If at least 3 mana was spent to cast a spell, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. So this is encouraging you to mill yourself, and you may choose a creature card in your graveyard, return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. This is really good. There's a card called Rise from the Grave. It does something similar. It doesn't have that top part, and it doesn't enter with a counter, but you can target stuff in an opponent's graveyard. I believe that's cycling. And so I don't know if Standard definitely needed this. I mean, it costs 1 more than Blood for Bones, and it puts a counter on him, so I could totally see this being run with Blood for Bones for even more, just returning stuff straight to the battlefield. But then again, Rise from the Grave didn't see much traction, so I don't know if this will either. Next, we have Black Lance Paragon, which is a 2-cost 3/1 with Flash, so helping out that Simic Flash deck if you added black. There have been a couple black cards with Flash in them, so I wondered if they would adapt 3 colors, although with the rotating lands, I don't know if that's very likely. It's a knight, and whenever it enters the battlefield, target knight gains Death Touch and Lifelink. So this is very similar to that one pirate, except it's a 3/1 instead of a 1/1, or 3 instead of a 2/1, but it itself doesn't have Death Touch. However, technically, it can target itself, so, like, it's very powerful, because you could give your best knight lifelink at instant speed or death touch, and so this is basically a removal card for 2 in a knight's deck. I think this would totally see play in a knight's deck. Next, we have the Cauldron of Eternity. This is the second card that has had a super-duper high mana cost, but it is reduced by something. So we had the Magic Mirror, now we have the Cauldron of Eternity, which is a 12-cost legendary artifact, and this spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. Again, encouraging people to mill themselves and use the graveyard as a resource, which honestly isn't how the game is really meant to work. It's meant to be creature-based, and I get that you can do other strategies with it, but I think that using the graveyard as a resource is something that shouldn't be super-duper common, and I think it should be safe for Mythic, so I think this is kind of fair so far, but let's see what it does. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. Okay.
I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand either. Then you pay, because that's generally a bad thing in a black deck, but why don't we read? Pay 3, tap, pay 2 life, okay? Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, so that's where it gets really powerful, is that since you have most likely 5 creatures in your graveyard, you can now, once per turn, paying 2 life, 3 mana, and tapping it, you can return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. I could see this going like an Agent of Treachery deck if that deck ran a little bit more mill. Maybe throw an Ashiok in there. I could totally see this being played. However, when a creature dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. I don't know if that's meant to depower this card, I think, unless you have a ways of shuffling your library. So I'm not sure about this card. I think Magic Mirror is much more powerful. Next, we have Fires of Invention. It's a 4-cost enchantment rare. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. So this is already a limitation, which means you know the next part's going to be really powerful. Generally, when you're looking at a card, if you see some major limitation on it, it was probably without that limitation. They're like, whoa, we need to pump the brakes here. So you may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana cost. I think this is kind of dangerous in a environment with Risen Reef, because I have seen they drop black for red, or like I've seen different colors of it, and I could totally see this going in there. Sure, you can only cast 2 spells per turn, and I don't know if that would really fit with the deck, but they do have to be careful with cards like this. Anything that allows you to cast stuff without paying its mana cost is very dangerous. Yeah. Next, we have Sundering Stroke. It deals 7 damage, divided as you choose for 7 mana. Divide as you choose among 1, 2, or 3 targets. If you spend at least 7 red mana to cast the spell, it does 7 damage to each of those permanents and/or players. So it either does 7 damage divided among 3, or if you're in mono red, or you for some reason have a lot of red mana, it does 7 damage to 3 target creatures or players. Permanents or players. So this could basically say, I'm going to murder all your planeswalker, or 3 of them. I'm going to hit you for 7. I'm going to hit your creature for 7, and then I'm going to hit something else for 7. And you don't have to choose 3 targets. You can choose 1. You can choose 2. You can choose 3. I think I said that already. But, you know, that I think this card is one of the more overpriced cards. However, I believe this, coincidentally, works really well with that one card that says you may only cast 1 more spell this turn and gives you 7 mana. And it's all red, so this could work well with that. So basically, you could theoretically with that card play this turn 4, which I don't know if this burn spell is really the spell is really worth that. I think there could be some better things you could cast, like some sort of finale or something, but I'm not sure. Next, we have Torabran, Thane of Redfell. It's a 4-cost 2/4. I do have to say, I really like the styles. While I think the way that they are obtained is a bit confusing and could be better explained, I really like that they're adding this. So, we have a legendary creature, Dwarf Noble. If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2. So, of course, we're losing that one card that doubles red damage. So this is kind of falling into place. It's similar to a Jaya effect, and there are infinite combos that run with that, and so having another card that does a similar thing could make those combos less janky. Still janky, but less janky. Next, we have Tall as a Beanstalk. It's a 4-cost enchantment or an enchant creature. It gets +3/+3, and it's a giant. Filler common. Next, we have Gerund Brave Squire. It's a 2-cost 2/2, and whenever you cast a creature that has an adventure, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Filler common. I don't think an adventure deck's really going to be a thing. They're in all colors, although green and white are the 2 main ones. This is just such a low payoff and it's only when you cast the creature part, not the other part. So I don't think this is going to see any play. Next, we have an adventure. It's a 6-cost 6/5, but you can pay 4 and put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. You better do that, because a 6/5 for 6 in green is pretty bad. I mean, if you can get a 10/10 in green for 5, so I think that this is severely underpowered and won't be played outside of draft. Next, we have Giant Opportunity. It's a 3-cost sorcery. You may sacrifice 2 food tokens if you do create a 7/7 green giant token. Otherwise, create 3 food tokens. I think this card will definitely be in a food deck, as maybe even a win con. There was this one 6-cost green spell, and it was like, create 3 pigs. Then when those pigs die, create food. And I'm like, well, this card is so much better. You might say, well, you don't get the pigs, but here you can get a 7/7. So I think this card is monumentally better, because you don't have to sacrifice 2 foods. You can either pay 3 and get 3 food, or you may pay 3 and sacrifice 2 food to create a giant. So I think this is pretty good. Next, we have Yorvo, Lord de Corto de Garin. He is a triple green legendary creature, giant noble, and it enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 0/0, it turns into a 4/4. Whenever another green creature enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Yorvo, and then if their power is greater than that creature's power, put another +1/+1 counter. So you want to play a bunch of small little things, or it has to be a green creature, but if you can figure out a token, like Saproling kind of thing that goes with this could be really powerful, because you play a 1/1, well, this guy's going to get 2 counters. You play 3 1/1s, he just got 6 counters. So I think this guy could be crazy in a token deck. Next, we have Hengewalker. It's a 3-cost 2/2 with Adamant, and if at least 3 men of the same color was spent to cast a spell, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Again, anything that's an artifact, you need to be wary of that one card that taps. Oh my god, why can't I think of the name of it? That one card that taps and adds a counter everything. I believe it's Teal Overseer. Next, we have another one. It's an artifact creature, Gnome, Clockwork Serpent, 3-cost 2/3. And when it enters the battlefield, if you spend 3 mana of the same color, draw a card. It's okay. I mean, artifact, they have to be very careful with colorless. I'm sorry about that. But colorless and artifacts, but I think it's decent. Next, we have Drown in the Loch. It's a 2-cost instant. Choose one. Counter target spell with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of cards in its controller's graveyard, and do the same, but instead destroy a creature. I think this card is going to be crazy. I think it'll be played. It's the same mana cost of Tyrant Scorn, and that has massive, rules or like downsides to it. So I think this will totally be played in a mill deck. There seems to be a lot of support for mill in this set. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.